It's time for 515 Fantasy Football.
I know football. Are you ready for some football?
Domination on Sundays begins with listening to these guys on Thursdays.
You ready for this?
Over 40 years of fantasy football experience between them.
Yeah!
One is a proud veteran of the United States Marine Corps, husband and father, entering his 18th year of fantasy competition. Brian Eikenberry. The other, also a proud husband and father, is one of the winningest fantasy minds in the state. Celebrating 24 years of excellence. Andy Hall.
Let's get the game on!
It's showtime. The 515 Fantasy Football Show with your hosts, Andy Hall and Brian Eikenberry.
Hello and welcome to week 2, friends. The theme of this week is always, do not overreact to week 1. Resist the urge. So your studs disappointed you in the opener. Des Bryant, Allen Robinson, Odell Beckham, Demaryius Thomas, Devontae Freeman, Adrian Peterson. The list goes on. But you know what all of these gentlemen have in common besides letting you down in week 1? They're all still healthy. And that is the key. 515 Fantasy Football back at it. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. For as many impressive performances as we saw from studs in week 1, there were plenty of duds too, but that's normal, isn't it?
This has just been an absolutely exciting week. It's why we love this stuff. And when you become out a champion because of your deep draft strategy and making sure those wide receiver threes count, you come out on top feeling pretty dang good.
But this is normal. This happens every year.
All the time. That's why we don't overreact to week 1.
We invite you to be a part of our online community on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy, and online at espndesmoines.com. Don't know if you noticed, I had the help desk up and rocking earlier this week. Help some folks out at the quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end positions.
Yeah, it has been a busy week out there in the Twitterverse. We appreciate it. We appreciate all that feedback, and that's what we love to do is help people out.
We're all about interacting with you, unlike some of the quote-unquote experts you follow on social media and elsewhere. Barely ever will you get a response from them. Our guarantee is we will never ignore you. You invest in us, we give it right back. A ton of things to cover over our 2-hour show, including grades on all the fantasy-relevant players, break down each of this week's matchups. If you're desperate, another round of bargain bin, pop quiz guaranteed to make Brian's head spin again this week, and the good old flea flicker to wrap things up. And I think I actually have some topics in mind this week, which will make you happy.
Uh-oh.
I'm getting the hang of this, you know?
Hey, it's all about thinking on your feet, being quick, being fresh, and having a little fun in the flea flicker.
That was a bit of a tongue twister.
It was. I couldn't get it out.
That's right. We begin, as we always do, with some headlines of fantasy note. The Chargers wide receiver Keenan Allen out for the season with a torn ACL, a non-contact injury. Couldn't have come at a worse time, right, at the start of the season.
Right at the start. A lot of hopes and dreams were kind of shattered. Some egos were bruised, but stick around. We'll help you out.
RG3 placed on injured reserve with a broken coracoid bone. I've never heard of that in my life.
Well, that's important to me for 2 reasons. 1, I won our bet for RG3, and 2, kind of won that pop quiz question from 2 weeks ago. So retroactively going to count that one now too.
That's why I always add the disclaimer, provided he can stay healthy.
I don't think that's in the record. Troj, help me out. You're out there listening. I know you got my back on this one.
Okay, pal. CJ Spiller waived by the Saints. I'm a bit surprised by that, but then I did some digging, and I found out that the reason they were putting him out there so much in the preseason was to try to get his value up for some trade bait.
Yeah, nobody was biting, which is surprising. I mean, there's lots of people who could use a Spiller in their offense. Indianapolis.
No question about it. Patriots tight end Rob Gronkowski returned to practice Wednesday. He's questionable for Sunday's game with a hamstring. For somebody like you, Brian, in one of our leagues, you spent a high draft pick on Rob Gronkowski only to miss out on week 1. Ouch.
But I still won week 1 because I have Antonio Brown as well, so that's okay. But he's practicing, so that's good news.
Bills wide receiver Sami Watkins will be playing with pain all season long. He's had that foot injury and had surgery on it in the offseason. According to the team, he will not be shut down. Aside from all of the Rex Ryan foot jokes we could make.
I get it now. I didn't even think about that.
Rex is kind of an expert when it comes to feet, I hear. But they're not shutting Sami down. He's just going to have to deal with the pain as much as he possibly can, I guess.
That's stupid because you are now a target for every wandering foot after a tackle. You're going to get stepped on.
And also, they have nobody else.
And they have nobody else.
In the Buffalo offense. I mean, literally nobody you want to own in the wide receiver core at all.
None.
Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson sprained his ankle on Sunday. It was not an accident, if you ask me, and Ndamukong Suh stepped on it and says it was an accident.
Yeah, I can't imagine Suh would do something like that intentionally.
No. You have no experience with Suh, do you?
None.
As a Lions fan. The team is confident that Wilson will play on Sunday. Color me a bit skeptical, though. He might not be as mobile as he's been, and that's an issue considering he's got one of the worst offensive lines in the league trying to block for him.
Yeah, it's definitely something if you're a Russell Wilson owner, you need to be paying it very close attention and have your backup ready.
Seahawks running back Thomas Rawls named the starter for Week 2. This probably should have happened in Week 1. Turned out, looking at the breakdown of the snaps and all of that, the snap counts, that Rawls played pretty much just as much as Christine Michael did. So starter in name only perhaps, but we'll see going forward if Rawls gets more work as head coach Pete Carroll insists that they're looking to get for him. Chiefs head coach Andy Reid is unsure of running back Jamal Charles' Week 2 status. He's got that knee problem. I would not count on him for this week. I think they'll go another week of Spencer Ware and maybe start to work Jamal in beginning in Week 3. We can only hope. Demaryius Thomas sustained a hip injury on Sunday. He's back on the practice field, but clearly hurting, according to some reports I've read.
Yeah, that's not good. They were showing where he was holding his hip, grimacing in pain after running and turning, and it's not a good situation.
Jags running back Chris Ivory released from the hospital Tuesday. Status unclear going forward. Kind of a weird situation there. We'll just have to wait and see. But the Jags are clearly going to be a more potent offense once they can get that running game going, and it clearly is not going to be just with T.J. Yeldon. Eagles tight end Zach Ertz has a displaced rib fracture, which just sounds so painful. Week to week, his status is uncertain for Week 2. I wouldn't count on him.
Isn't displaced rib on the actual operation game? Like, is that what displaced rib means?
That's funny. I'd have to look at the board. I don't remember. Dolphins running back Arian Foster took the day off Wednesday with what they're calling a hamstring injury. Sounds to me like a veteran's day off. Wide receiver Devontae Parker is back at practice for the Dolphins as of Wednesday. Ravens wide receiver Brashad Perryman did not practice Wednesday. He's got a minor calf issue going on there. Vikings beat reporters say Sam Bradford took all the first-team reps on Wednesday for the team. Saints cornerback, Delvin Brio suffered a broken fibula on Sunday. He will miss significant time the Saints really, he's their best. And that's not saying much because the Saints are terrible defensively, but losing him is like the last straw, and they're going to be right up there with the Colts as far as worst defenses in the league.
As a Drew Brees owner, that's actually kind of good news
Great
because
news.
they're going to be playing from behind and throwing even more.
Colts cornerback Patrick Robinson questionable for Sunday with a concussion. He's in the league's concussion protocol. The hits just keep on coming in Indy, so that's great news for Andrew Luck owners as well. Piggybacking off of what you just said. Packers corner Sam Shields suffered his third concussion Sunday, his second in less than 9 months, and he's probably their best cover corner, so not great news for them heading into a big Sunday night matchup in Minnesota. Falcons head coach Dan Quinn said the team will continue to use both Devontae Freeman and Tevin Coleman in a rotation. We'll be talking a lot about this breakdown and how that ended up this past weekend during the show here today, but using them both in rotation sounds like maybe a hot hand kind of situation. Either way, not great news for either guy, if you ask me.
Not great news if you're a Freeman owner, but kind of great news if you picked Coleman just in case.
Freeman, speaking of which, was limited in practice on Wednesday with what they're calling a quad injury. That came out of nowhere. And finally, the Bucs signed free agent running back Jacquizz Rodgers.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe depth?
Blocking, maybe?
Well, who else do they have besides Doug Martin and Charles Sims?
Well, why would you go out and sign somebody? That's what you have practice squad and UDFAs for.
You want to know what the answer is, honestly? Dirk Cutter.
Oh, I guess
His former
so.
coach. His former coach bringing it back. This happens a
locker
lot.
room guy.
This happens a lot, Same situation.
Must be nice.
No doubt about it. I don't see him hitting the field much, that's for sure. We have a lot to break down, as I said. You will get your bargain bin picks from both Brian and myself, one quarterback, one running back, and one pass catcher each. That chances are is available right now on your waiver wire, even after waivers went through for most leagues. Guy you can pick right up, plug right in, and expect a decent amount of fantasy production from. We'll hit that near the end of the show, along with the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. We also have a pop quiz that's going to absolutely drive Brian crazy.
So he says.
And we're also breaking down each and every one of the matchups and all the fantasy-relevant players with our grading system as well. It's great to have you aboard. We hope you do stay tuned. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. We are also available on iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry.
Hello.
I just keep waiting for, you said at one point that you wanted
I was going to do all animal
sounds.
But I was kind of practicing that in my head, and I could only come up with like 7. And it's like, what does a yak make? What does a skunk make?
What?
I was running out of options.
You didn't know that was a narwhal?
Yeah.
Crazy.
What does a fox say?
Oh, we're not going to go there. All right, it is time to start breaking down these matchups, Brian, and you have the honors for Thursday Night Football.
Rolling into the Jets at the Bills. Quarterback Ryan Fitzpatrick, he has a traditionally poor record dealing with Rex Ryan. I don't think it's going to matter. I think this one's a little bit different here. The Bills gave up 300 yards passing last week, so I'm rolling with Fitz here, B+. Running back Matt Forte, he's going to get a B. Forte had questions heading into the season, and he performed just as he has for the last 10 years. 100 yards of total offense, whether it's catching or running or whatever. Forte is Forte, and it looks like he's going to carry that throughout the rest of this year. Bilal Powell, he's going to get a C. He typically would have got a B, is how we kind of thought they were going to be used, but it looks like it's Forte no matter what, and it's really kind of his show for the majority.
Which shocks me.
Yeah.
Because, again, we broke this down at length. I still think Bilal Powell is worth owning. He's not a guy that you're going to cut just yet. But the fact that they signed nearly identical contracts, the Jets are paying good money for Bilal Powell to essentially stand on the sidelines. I'm not buying it.
It's got to be something, though, right?
Week 1, it must have been the matchup or game flow or something.
Could've
I
been.
don't know.
Could have been. That's why we're not coaches, I guess.
I think we'll see more of Bilal Powell going forward. I
think so. But for right now, he's going to get a C because I'm not willing to put my neck out there for him. So wide receiver Brandon Marshall, B+. He's always a stud. He didn't do much in week 1, but hey, we don't overreact to week 1. He has history on his side, so we will not overreact. Brandon Marshall, B+. Eric Decker, he's going to get the B. He had 80 yards and a touch. He has had 80 yards or a touchdown in 16 straight games.
Whoa.
He has 80 yards or a touchdown in 16 straight games. I expect him to carry on the same, so he's going to get a B out of me. And, you can even roll over to tight end Kellen Davis. He's a do not start. I think last week he had an assisted tackle, and that was it. That was his recorded statistic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised you even brought him up, to be honest.
Well, you know what? It just seemed a little short on the Jets side. Over to the Bills, quarterback Tyrod Taylor, C. Sami Watkins being limped up, that screw in his foot. It's not going to help out Tyrod Taylor much. His stock goes down, even with a bad secondary on the Jets. Running back LaShawn McCoy, when healthy, he will get an A out of me. He is the only person left on the Bills roster that's probably going to be scoring some points. He's like a Swiss Army knife at this point, and he's going to get a pretty heavy dose of work from here on out. Fingers crossed he does not get injured. Wide receiver Sami Watkins, you heard, he's going to be trying to play through that pain. I'm giving him a C+. I owned him, and I was really hurt to see this. He can't be considered a confident start at this point until he gets that pain under control. They're going to be targeting him. You never know. He could play for a quarter, take 2 quarters off, and then come back again. So it's not worth it. Wide receiver Robert Woods, B. He's going to get more looks, but play it safe. Definitely sticking. Definitely worth sticking in your lineup. And tight end Charles Clay. Doesn't do much, questionable, but given that Sami Watkins is out, you might want to consider just putting Clay on your watch list. I'm going to give him a B. He's questionable, but with Watkins on the limp there, I'm going to bump him up into the B range.
But Watkins isn't out, though, right?
No, he's not out,
Okay,
but, I mean, he's out of my lineup from now on.
Is that right? You're not going to start him?
No,
Wow.
just because. That's a pretty big deal to have to be constantly playing through the pain. You have no idea. You could tell it impacted him massively last Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to happen again. It's not all of a sudden going to get better.
Boy, I tell you, Vegas has this game at over-under at 41.
Whoa.
I'm probably betting the under.
Yeah, I'm gonna,
with confidence.
Yeah, and that's all going to come from one team probably.
Yeah, you mentioned the Jets side of the ball there for you was relatively short. There's a reason for that. So my first matchup of the week is San Francisco at Carolina. On the Niners side, Carlos Hyde is the first player I will mention, and he'll give him a C grade here. And I give him a starting grade because he, like C.J. Anderson, is a workhorse. San Fran's O-line isn't nearly as good as the Broncos, but given the volume Hyde should see, he should have an opportunity to come out of this tough matchup with halfway decent numbers. So a starting grade of C. Jeremy Curley, I'm also giving him a C. A target leader in week 1, should continue to get looks as the Niners play from way behind in this one. Torrey Smith, a C-. He saw 6 targets last weekend, only brought in 2 of them, but is still a deep threat that could at any time break a long one. I know that's the narrative of Torrey Smith, and he just hasn't shown anything, and this goes back through the preseason as well.
Yeah, it was terrible. He's just not that good.
Not anymore, anyway. Long shot, certainly. But if you're in a tough spot, he's a number 1 wide receiver, sort of, that you could plug in and pray for.
Yeah, technically.
The only other player I'll mention here is Vance McDonald, the tight end. I gave him a C grade. Targeted in the red zone and came away with a score in week 1. May not be much of a possession tight end, but if the Niners can get close to the stripe, he's got as good a chance as any of their other playmakers of hauling one in. All right, now over to the Carolina side. Cam Newton is an obvious A. He's been surprisingly underwhelming against the Niners in 2 starts, but if he can muster nearly 200 yards passing and a score against the Broncos, 56 yards and a score on the ground, is there anyone that's willing to bet he can't pull that off against San Fran at home? The Niners, like many below-average defenses, perform even worse on a short week when they have to travel cross-country. That's tough for any team. Jonathan Stewart, I'm going to give a B grade to. He put up pedestrian numbers against the Niners in 2010 and 2013, but this was back when he was splitting touches with D'Angelo Williams. He was limited in practice this week with an ankle injury. Look for Jay Stu to get a decent amount of volume and put up average numbers in this one. Calvin Benjamin, I'm giving an A grade to.
Did you eat crow on that one?
I am eating all kinds of crow.
Yeah,
in fact,
you
I'm
are,
eating
buddy.
so much crow that I'm probably going to throw up all over the table.
That's awesome.
I was really wrong about Calvin Benjamin. He came out last week and proved me and a lot of other folks wrong. Looked like a beast out there.
Not this co-host.
He just did. He played 51 of 72 snaps in week 1. On his way to a team-high 12 targets, he caught 6 of those for 91 yards and a score. He looked like he was 8 feet tall out there.
The guy was just killing it. I think a lot of people just forgot about how freakishly good he was.
There's that, but plus remember the narrative going into last week was they were going to have him on a pitch count. He wasn't going to play more than about 35 snaps. That all went out the window. Ron Rivera lied to us.
Yeah, liar.
Yeah. It should be no different here in week 2 against a pass defense that gave up an average of over 40 fantasy points to opposing pass catchers in 2015 and ranked 3rd from last in touchdowns allowed to the wide receiver position. Love Benjamin again this week. Devin Funchess, a C. He wasn't targeted much last Thursday, and as long as Benjamin and Olsen are healthy and in the lineup, he'll play second fiddle. Or 3rd. Perpetually an upside play, but he will disappoint more than he impresses. Ted Ginn Jr. I've got on the radar slightly here. I give him a C grade. He has to be considered. He scored double-digit touchdowns last year, and San Fran isn't exactly known for slowing opposing wide receivers, as I mentioned. Greg Olson's a B grade, always a solid play.
All right, we're going to head Cowboys-Redskins here. Quarterback Dak Prescott, he's going to get the A here. The Redskins allowed 450 yards passing last week. So hopefully that means Dak can stretch out his wings and spread the ball around, rack up some points for those of you who did draft him, maybe in place of Tom Brady. Running back Ezekiel Elliott. So I'll eat crow on this one because I was like, Elliott's going to run all over the place. That didn't happen.
No.
I'm going to give him a B. I think he just needs to find his rhythm. I think the game was moving really fast, and you know what? That's okay. I'll live with it, but he'll pan out here in a little bit. He's still better than a lot of the running backs did. There were only 2 that had 100 yards. He's going to get his carries. He's a little behind. He just needs to find that pace. He'll be just fine. Running back Alfred Morris C. It's clear to me that his role is limited as long as Elliott stays healthy. Wide receiver Des Bryant, B+. I wanted to bring it down, but one thing I noticed was that Josh Norman wasn't moving around following the wide receiver 1, watching that game from last week. So expect Dez to move around that formation to get away from Norman and pick up those easy grabs. Terrence Williams, B-. One thing.
Get out of bounds.
Get out of bounds. Are you kidding me? It's ridiculous.
Unbelievable. I would bench him just for not getting out of bounds at the end of that game.
Hey, you know what? If you were a fantasy owner and you needed an extra yard or 2, he was trying for you.
Oh, is that the narrative?
Yeah, he was trying for you.
Jeez. Who the hell started Terrence Williams in week 1? I want to know.
One person to watch, wide receiver Cole Beasley. If you watch that game, he had 12 targets and 8 receptions. One is chance, 2 times is a trend. So if he gets the same thing this week, if he gets another 12 targets or so this week, you PPR nuts better be snagging Cole Beasley up quick.
It won't happen. You want to know why?
Why?
Because Des Bryant will make it known that he wants to be fed, and he will be fed.
Oh, well.
He's
we'll
the
see.
squeaky wheel.
He is, but you can't get 42 targets.
Bye-bye, Beasley.
No, you watch. Stay tuned. If he gets it again, lock and load on Cole Beasley. Tight end Jason Witten, B. Same thing for Witten. I believe I kind of picked him as a bargain bin. He had 13 targets, 9 receptions with 66 yards.
And that will continue with a rookie quarterback.
Yeah, and that was pretty awesome to see. Quarterback Kirk Cousins, A-. Dallas's defense, top half of the league. Washington was 8th in the league in passing. Cousins has lots of options, so A- for Kirk Cousins. Running back Matt Jones, B-. Nothing to see. Temper your expectations.
Horrible. He sucks.
Oh, that was disgusting.
I'm telling you, man. I knew it.
So, yeah, that was just – I was heartbroken. I wanted to prove you wrong on that one again. It didn't work.
No.
Wide receiver Deshaun Jackson, B+. He looked sharp and agile. Didn't get the touchdown, but he had 100 yards. That's just fine. I'll take it. You give me 100 yards, I don't care about a touchdown. Pierre Garçon, B-. He had 51 yards, but he did catch all 6 of his targets, so that's promising. He's more of a third option than the second because the second option is Jordan Reed. To me, anyways, Jordan Reed is that second option. I'm going to give Jordan Reed the A. He did enough last week to keep you satisfied, but I expect this to be his breakout game.
Whereas week 1 was like the anti-tight end week, with the exception of the Indianapolis Colts. I don't think any other tight ends did much of anything in week 1. Week 2 is going to be a big tight end week. You watch.
Huge.
I think so, too. You forgot Chris Thompson. Where would you grade him?
C-. I just kind of skipped over him. He took some snaps, but I mean, it's nothing you're going to – if you're starting Chris Thompson, yikes. You need to listen to the bargain bin coming up.
Correct.
We have better options.
We do, and you will hear those near the end of the program today. We also will be doing the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker, which I just had a little issue saying myself. Thanks for coming up with the hardest thing to say ever for the show.
That's awesome.
The pop quiz is still on the way, and more matchups as well, including a big AFC North battle, which I've got coming up here in just a little bit. By the way, Dallas, Washington, be a lot of points scored in that game. Trust me.
Hope so.
More still to come. The 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show, heard on 1350 AM ESPN Radio in Des Moines, heard on iTunes, heard on Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. My name's Andy Hall. I'm on Twitter at Andy Hall Radio. That's Brian Eikenberry. He is on Twitter at IkeFFB. That's IKEFFB. We really appreciate having you here, whether this is your first time or you're an old vet. We'd love for you to reach out to us if there's anything we can do for you. And again, appreciate you just checking us out. More matchups here, Brian. We're going to begin with Cincinnati at Pittsburgh. Big AFC North battle here. And on the Bengals side of the ball, Andy Dalton gets a B grade. The Steelers can be thrown on. Kirk Cousins tossed 43 passes to Redskins receivers in week 1, 30 of which he completed for 329 yards. No scores granted, and he did throw 2 picks. But Dalton historically hasn't thrown for more than 250 yards against the Steelers in 10 career starts. On average, tosses 1, maybe 2 touchdown passes at the most. He's got some weapons there. A.J. Green is a beast. We know it. Nobody's going to be able to stop him in this one. But I don't exactly think it's going to be a huge day for Dalton. Neither will it be for their running game. Jeremy Hill, I give a C+ to. I'm not in love with either of the Bengals' backs against a Pittsburgh defense that ranked top 5 against the run in 2015 and allowed only 6 rushing scores all year long. If this game is competitive, Hill should get enough carries to make him a worthwhile flex starter. If it's not, he'll flop badly, as he has in every game against the Steelers throughout his career, with the exception of last year's playoff game. It's the only time he put up decent stats. For Giovanni Bernard, a C grade. Bernard hasn't fared much better than Hill historically, hasn't scored against Pittsburgh since December of 2014, and is generally held in check in the passing game as well. Speaking of the passing game, I mentioned A.J. Green. He gets the obvious A grade. In 11 career games against the Steelers, Green has averaged over 91 yards per game and scored 7 touchdowns. Just last year, he went 11 for 118 and a touchdown in the first matchup, 6 for 132 and a touchdown in the second, and 5 for 71 and a touchdown in the playoff loss. I see no reason he can't continue the white-hot streak he began in Week 1. Brandon LaFell, a C grade. Dalton's going to have to spread the targets to more than just Green in order to have a chance to win this divisional matchup. Trouble is, Pittsburgh has never traditionally been kind to Cincy's number 2 and number 3 wide receivers. Tyler Boyd, I'm leaving on the bench. I want to see more before I endorse starting the talented rookie. On the Steelers side, Big Ben gets a B grade. Did not look especially strong in 3 meetings with the Bengals last season, throwing for an average of 257 yards per game, only 2 touchdown passes total, and 4 INTs. He's got solid weapons around him, one of the best O-lines protecting him. He should have a good, not great, day here. D'Angelo Williams should have a great day, though. B+. He has had success in limited history against Cincy, including 23 rushes for 76 yards and 2 touchdown performance in last year's playoff game in Ohio. The unquestionable workhorse will also contribute some in the short passing game as well. Antonio Brown, I'm giving an A- to here. Preposterous, I know that I would give him anything but an A. Has never had one of those patented Antonio Brown games against the Bengals, ever. His ceiling versus Cincy happened in December of 2014 when he caught 7 passes for 128 yards and a touchdown. On average, he's good for around 6 receptions and 83 yards per game. But after what we saw him do last Monday night, is anyone expecting the average from Brown?
Nope.
Eli Rogers, I'm giving a C+ to. 6 grabs for 59 yards and a touchdown against Washington last Monday night gives an indication of what he's capable of. But for as improved as the Skins may be, they're no Bengals, who were top 5 against opposing pass catchers in 2015 and all but shut down the Jets' talented duo of Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker last week. Sammy Coates, a C grade. I wouldn't trust him in your lineup until we see him improve on the targets he got in Week 1. Jesse James is your starting tight end. Give him a C grade here. He stays into block more often than he's out on pass routes. Still, though, he's a big body. He's got great hands. Could pay dividends down near the goal line if given the opportunity.
On to the Saints-Giants. Quarterback Drew Brees. A all day, every day. You don't need me to tell you that Brees is going to be a start, but just in case, he's getting an A. Running back Mark Ingram. Thought about this one for a little bit. Had a little conflicting thoughts, but I'm going to give him an A-. Now that Spiller's out, I would clearly expect him to be just nothing but money from here on out. So expect his production to jump up a little bit. Running back Tim Hightower, I'm going to give a C. Stash play.
You like him better than Travaris Cadet?
Yeah. We'll talk about it later. We'll just throw that out there right now.
Okay.
Wide receiver Brandon Cooks, B+. Both of these guys just rock it. Brees throws plenty, so there's always action to go around. Willie Snead also B+. So I'm loving these two guys. Doesn't matter where you're at. Start them both. Coleman, C, just the short end of the stick. Colby Fleener. Here's something that was just kind of odd. 1 catch, 4 targets for Colby Fleener. I was expecting more out of this.
Still figuring out the offense, apparently.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It's a playbook issue and route running. It's not a production issue.
Plus, he never was able to beat out Dwayne Allen in Indy, so
Yeah.
maybe he's just not that good.
maybe he's not that good, but I just can't imagine that they would have gone after him, got him, and then just find out that he's not that good. But maybe. So Colby Fleener, C-. Look elsewhere for your tight ends in the short term. Onto the Giants side of the ball, quarterback Eli Manning, B+. He had the touchdowns, but definitely want to see more yards. 210 isn't great with 3 touchdowns. Hopefully it's going to be much closer to 300, especially with the news with the Saints secondary getting a little bit worse. So it should be a good shootout here this week. So Eli Manning is a must start for me, B+. Running back Rashad Jennings and Shane Vereen, I'm going to both give C's to. I just don't love this running game yet. It's a confidence thing for me. Jennings had 75 yards, probably better than most he had last year. He had 18 carries, which makes him a legit starter. It's just one of those things where you never know. Because last year it was up, down, it was one, it was the other. It was kind of like the Ravens backfield. So I'm going to give them both C's for right now. Let's just wait it out a little bit longer. Odell Beckham Jr., he's going to get an A. Shootout is hopefully going to jump his stat lines up, give him a big boost because we're not overreacting to week 1. Wide receiver Sterling Shepard, B-. Victor Cruz, C+. Shepard had a touchdown, but on 40 yards. Cruz amazingly had a touchdown. He danced. I laughed. Maybe these guys are going to roll 3 wide from here on out and really kind of spread it out and give defenses a different look here. But Larry Donnell, D, I wouldn't count on the TD grab all the time.
Miami at New England. On the Dolphins side, Ryan Tannehill, a C grade. His extremely inconsistent play against the Patriots over his career is a microcosm of how he's performed against NFL-level competition kind of on the whole. In 8 career games versus New England, he's thrown for an average of about 262 yards per game, slightly more than 1 touchdown, and exactly 1 INT, with a smattering of rushing yards also thrown in. What's interesting is that with Tannehill, there's a pattern of good game, bad game, and so on since he took the reins in South Beach. So no matter where the game is being played, every other game is a good one. The last time these two teams met in January in Miami, it was a good game. 350 yards passing, 2 touchdowns. So this one, if the pattern holds true, will not be a good game. Foster, Arian Foster, a B+. A dual-threat workhorse like Foster typically fared well against New England. David Johnson, the most recent example, having run for 89 yards in a score in last Sunday night's game in Arizona. Foster hasn't faced the Patriots since 2013 as a member of the Texans. In that game at Foxborough, he gained a total of 153 combo yards and 2 scores. So, yeah, I like him. Jarvis Landry, a B. He's been very consistent in his 3 prior meetings with New England, but not consistently great. As we've seen with Landry throughout his career, he gets a ton of volume, but not a ton of yards or scoring opportunities. But here's the hope. Slot guys have traditionally fared well against the Patriots. See Larry Fitzgerald in week 1, who went off for 2 touchdowns on Sunday night. Landry is, if nothing else, Tannehill's favorite red zone target. It's not even close. Kenny Stills, a C-. Miami's deep threat, he had a case of the Butterfingers that cost him and his team a sure touchdown in week 1. New England prides itself on not allowing opposing wide receivers to get behind their coverage, so I don't love Stills' chances of reaching the end zone in this one. On the Patriots side, Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll give a B grade 2. It may just be the eye test, but Garoppolo, at least in my opinion, looked excellent against a traditionally tough Arizona D on the road in week 1. I have virtually no worries that he can at the very least match his numbers from that game, if not exceed them at home. LeGarrette Blount, I'll give a B to. I don't see a scenario in which the Dolphins keep this game competitive. In games where the Patriots are working with a lead, Blount is the workhorse. He has yet to put up a big fantasy day against Miami, but with the amount of volume expected in this game, this could be the week. Kevin White, a C+. He'll always have a presence, both running the ball and catching passes from Jimmy G. He's a flex play in PPR leagues mainly. Julian Edelman, a B+. He should continue to be the target leader regardless of Gronk's status for week 2. He looked very healthy last Sunday night and was regularly out-hustling the Cardinals' speedy D-backs. It's a great sign for this year's campaign. Chris Hogan, a C+. If I'm throwing a dart at a second Patriots wide receiver, it's him. Malcolm Mitchell likely takes a back seat in field time if Gronk returns in week 2. Speaking of Gronk, he's an A grade. If he plays, he's in your lineup. Don't overthink this, whatever you do.
Don't overthink it.
And that'll do it for this segment. We've got more matchups still to come. The pop quiz, the bargain bin. It's all right here.
The flea flicker.
Oh, you don't want me to forget about that, do
No,
you?
no. It's very important to me.
Well, I'm excited because I actually have something I think I'm going to want to talk about here this week. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You are listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. You also can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. This week, we are brought to you by Cheesy Taco Rice.
Taco rice and cheese.
Dang, I screwed that up. Well, they won't be back next week for sponsorship.
Delicious.
That is what you ate on Sunday, is it not?
Taco rice and cheese, man. There's just something about it. It's a good gut buster, 3,000, and don't knock it till you try it, man. Taco rice and cheese.
Brian's got the first matchup of this segment.
I do. Chiefs at Texans. Quarterback Alex Smith. He's going to get a C. It's usual grade for Alex Smith here. He's not going to win, not going to lose. You're going to get 15 to 20 points. That's it, especially rolling into Houston. Running back Jamal Charles, you heard it. Probably not going to go. Looks like it's more Spencer Ware, so just keep an eye out. Who knows? Maybe things will change, but I doubt it. So looking like a Spencer Ware day again. B+ for that man, Spencer Ware. Filled in just nicely. Really, really nice. I would expect the same. He has a little ailment, but I'm not too concerned. Wide receiver Jeremy Maclin, he's going to get a B. 63 yards and a touchdown last week. I wouldn't expect it again this week. I would say maybe 60 yards with no touchdown. I don't know. Something about Houston at Houston with the Chiefs coming down, it just doesn't make me feel like it's going to be a good day for Alex Smith. Tyreek Hill, Chris Conley, they're getting C's. Pass if you have to, if you can. Kelsey, I'm going to give a B-. Decent tight end yardage, but he might be able to do the same this week. Not too sure, but I'm not confident in the Chiefs at all this week. On to the Texans side of the ball, quarterback Brock Osweiler, he's going to get a C+. Playing a traditionally decent Chiefs defense that definitely slipped up. They did not show themselves. I'm going to expect them to buckle down a little bit. That being said, Brock just may come out slinging and take the early lead and then shoulder that responsibility onto running back Lamar Miller, who's going to get an A. I like his matchup. Look for the team to continue with the same momentum as Lamar Miller being one of two running backs to only hit 100 yards in week one.
The other, of course, being D'Angelo Williams.
Is that who it was?
Those are the only two.
There you go, then.
The only running back on the Sunday games that ran for 100 yards, and I thought this was a pretty cool statistic, was Lamar Miller.
Who was on my bench because
nice.
I feared the matchup, and I just didn't buck up and go for it. But now I know. Lamar Miller, legit. Wide receiver DeAndre Hopkins, B. He had 54 and a touchdown last week. He's going to get some good coverage in the Chiefs' defense, but it's still Hopkins. Lamar Miller definitely takes away from his production. Still, Hopkins is Hopkins, so he's going to get his one way or another. Surprise of week one, wide receiver Will Fuller, also a source of much conflict among fantasy football leaguers. He's going to get a B. He made the best of his debut, sent people scrambling to add off the waiver wires. I'm thinking more of a one-hit wonder for this week for the time being. However, he's probably going to hit 1,000 yards this year. Tight end C.J. Fedorowicz, C-. Definitely an afterthought in this offense.
So you give both Hopkins and Fuller the same grade?
I am.
Wow.
In this
That's
matchup,
bold.
I believe in the Chiefs secondary. I don't believe in their front.
That's bold. Tennessee at Detroit on the Titans side. Marcus Mariota is a B grade. He has plenty of weapons that shouldn't have a ton of difficulty beating Lions corners at the line of scrimmage. A plus matchup for the talented sophomore, and he should be able to exploit a below-average pass defense here. DeMarco Murray, an A grade, didn't fare well in Detroit last season as a member of the Eagles, but 2016 is a whole new ball game after what we saw from him in week one, out-touching rookie Derrick Henry 18-5 and getting involved both in the running and the passing game. That should continue here against a Lions defense that was below average against the run last season, faring slightly better in the friendly confines of Ford Field. Speaking of Derrick Henry, I'll give him a C grade here. Undoubtedly, he'll get a few touches, and I think that'll increase as the course of the season goes on. But if week one is any indication, this is DeMarco's backfield until further notice. The receivers, Rashard Matthews gets a C grade from me. He wasn't very impressive last week, being out-touched by rookie Sharp and aged veteran Andre Johnson. Should improve over time, but maybe not by much. Speaking of Sharp, Tajay Sharp gets a B grade for me in this matchup. If there's one Titans receiver I'm actually excited about, it's this guy. Showed some flashes against a tough Minnesota defense last week. Should fare even better against the Lions. I mean, this is the reason Dorial Green-Beckham got traded. was Tajay Sharp. There's no question about it.
Pretty shocking.
Delaney Walker, I'm giving an A grade to. He should see a dramatic increase in targets this week against a Lions D that has never figured out how to slow talented tight ends. In fact, they gave up more tight end production last year than any team in the league, more tight end touchdowns than anybody.
We were too busy being awesome.
On the Lions side, and I don't think you'll disagree with much of this, Brian, Matthew Stafford gets an A grade. His hot streak should continue here against a Titans defense that features a formidable front seven but a below-average secondary that allowed Vikings quarterback Sean Hill a respectable day last Sunday. Since Jim Bob Cooter became the Lions OC, Stafford has tossed 22 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions.
Sexy, right?
Theo Riddick gets a B+. We didn't need to wait long for the investment to start paying dividends. His Week 1 performance was one for the ages and could have been even bigger. Despite a heavy dose of Amir Abdullah, Riddick will continue to play a huge part in the Lions' offensive scheme. Speaking of Abdullah, I'm giving him a B- here. Hardly anybody's talking about his Week 1 performance, but it was very solid. Should continue to see the majority of rushing attempts and a few passes thrown his way as well. Golden Tate gets a B+. He may have been out-targeted by Marvin Jones in Week 1, but put up respectable numbers in a shootout. Touchdowns will come eventually, and Stafford will continue to look his way plenty. Marvin Jones, I'm giving a B grade to. I like his chances again this week. Eric Ebron, a C grade, another sleeper candidate at the tight end position. The only concern is that maybe there are a lot of mouths to feed there in that Lions offense, and he may not get many opportunities, but I do like what he should be able to do with the opportunities he gets.
It's going to be a good week if you own fantasy Lions players, just an FYI. On to the Ravens-Browns. Quarterback Joe Flacco. You heard us here 3 weeks ago. I tell you, weeks 1 through 4, Joe Flacco will be a stud. So it'll be no surprise to any of our listeners why I am giving Joe Flacco an A. Flacco spread the ball around. Seems to have a pretty good rapport with all the receivers. I love this guy this year, and especially weeks 1 through 4. Cake matchup against the terrible Browns defense. Running back Justin Forsett, B-, and actually Terrence West also B-. Both of these guys are getting B-. Neither took their shots. Neither win the job. This may really become a play-calling bust. You start one, the other one's going to do it. You start the other one, Forsett's going to do it. Back and forth. Neither of them sees the opportunity to make themselves a starter for a long term. Wide receiver Mike Wallace called it B+, like a boss. I liked him early, and I think it's just the beginning of what he's going to do. Brashard Perriman took a step back, but he's still learning. I give him a pass. Kind of gimped up a little bit. Just leave him alone. He'll be fine. I called him a long time ago. I love this guy. I am just terribly in love with these Ravens receivers. Steve Smith, old man, is gonna make the Browns D feel some pain. I think it's going to be a huge day for Flacco. I wouldn't be surprised at 350-3 at the end of the day on Sunday. Tight end Crockett Gilmore, C-. No point in this start. Tell them they figure out how to use the running game. There's just not enough targets to go around on the Ravens there. Browns side of the ball, quarterback Josh McCown, B. I'm going to give you one guess as to which team allowed the fewest passing yards in Week 1.
So that'd be Baltimore.
Yeah, that'd be Baltimore. That's why I gave you one guess since it was in the matchup.
Woohoo!
Baltimore allowed the fewest passing yards in Week 1. So I like McCown about 100 times better than RG3. Baltimore's not going to stop them again like that. They're not going to be able to hold that secondary or that yardage title for long. So look for McCown to get 250-2. Running back Isaiah Crowell, B+. Crow had a good game. I liked him moving the ball. I would expect a decent amount here as McCown will give the run game legitimacy. Running back Duke Johnson, B-. Took a step in the wrong direction for me, but hopefully his ball-catching abilities will be used correctly now. Wide receiver Corey Coleman, B, 69 yards, nothing flashy last week. Wide receiver Terrell Pryor, he's going to get a C+, same story. I believe this is all going to change. It's essentially Week 1 again for the Browns offense. The biggest beneficiary here, tight end Gary Barnidge, B+. Biggest benefactor to McCown is this guy. Let the 2015 Barnidge back in business, baby.
It's a lot of B's.
It is. I was kind of getting it typed out really well, but once I was trying to enunciate it, it ran all together.
I did get a question about that on Twitter from a listener of ours that asked about Gary Barnidge and whether or not he should stick with him after Week 1, which was not a good week for Gary Barnidge. I said, yes, McCown's the quarterback. I mean, look at what he did with him last year. We knew that this might be an issue with RG3. The fact that he doesn't look to a safety valve, he looks to run.
Yep.
And he did look to run. So, fortunately for Gary Barnidge owners, your time is about to come. I think he's going to be targeted a lot in the coming weeks.
Looking forward to it.
Well, until Josh Gordon comes back, and then all bets are off, right?
No. It makes Barnidge, I would argue that makes Barnidge even more valuable then.
So we're halfway through the matchups. We have half of them to come still. We are also going to be doing the bargain bin, the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker, as well to wrap up today's show. But up next is everyone's favorite segment on this show. When I throw 3 really difficult questions, fantasy-related at Brian, the pop quiz is next on 515 Fantasy Football. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio, on iTunes and Stitcher as well, and online at espndesmoines.com. My name's Andy Hall. 24 years of fantasy football, lots of championships. Brian Eikenberry is my special guest and co-host. This is his 18th season playing, and he's commissioned several leagues and, of course, won lots of championships as well. Together, we are here with over 40 years of fantasy football experience. We know what it takes to win championships. Stick with us all season long. We'll get you there. And no matter how difficult a spot you feel like you're in after week 1, there's plenty of football yet to be played. Lots of transactions you can make to improve your squad. We can even help you out personally. Reach out to us on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, or on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. We'll do our best.
Hey, there's always an answer for your roster needs. You just may not be looking in the right spot. So that's something that's important. I help people all the time one-off, hey, I'm in trouble, man. I'm toast. Well, hold on. Let's look at this for a second.
Oh, check this out. You have an embarrassment of riches at the wide receiver position. Maybe you should package that with somebody and go for, you need some running backs or you need a top-end quarterback. Here's how you do it. Brian and I know how to make deals.
Yeah, we got this.
We got this. So feel free to reach out to us. Again, the guarantee is we will never ignore you. We will always respond in some way, shape, or form, unlike some of the quote-unquote experts out there who are just too busy making inside jokes amongst each other amongst themselves, I should say. That's what they do a lot of, by the way. It's really annoying.
And if we disagree, one of us will be right.
Indeed.
So there you go.
Therefore, nice little segue into our favorite segment.
Yeah, actually, that worked out well.
The pop quiz. When I write up 3 of fantasy's most difficult questions week after week after week, fire them at Brian without any prior knowledge as to what I'm going to ask, and we let the fantasy genius across from me answer as best he can. No matter what Brian answers, the deal is I will come back with the correct answer afterwards.
We shall see.
Are you ready, Mr. Brian?
Yep.
Question number 1 is, Eagles rookie Carson Wentz finished the NFL's first week number 10 at the quarterback position. Does Carson Wentz finish the season top 15?
No. We don't overreact to week 1. Period. That's the end of my answer.
You have learned so well.
Let's just settle down here. Let's just settle down.
Out of the gates, I wanted to see if maybe you were into maybe overreacting a little bit.
No. I mean, let's look at it. So they had 270 yards passing. I mean, yeah, it was cool, but so it's only week 1. Let's settle down. They did have a ton of rushing yards though, at 133.
So there's a lot of yards on the table, is what you're saying.
There's a lot of yards on the table, but I'm not buying it.
I'm so proud of you, Brian, and I hope everybody's paying really close attention to how Brian didn't even you didn't flinch. You came out and said, I'm not overreacting. Don't overreact to anything.
How many? So you said 10, right? Top 10 or 10, 15?
He finished number 10 after week 1. My question was whether or not he can finish top 15.
Yeah, I mean, think of all the other quarterbacks he would have to beat out to be in the top 15.
Pretty much the top half of all NFL quarterbacks.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you start putting names to that 15, you can come up with 15 off the top of your head.
Pretty much, yeah.
So, no.
The answer is no. 2015's 15th ranked fantasy quarterback was Kansas City's Alex Smith, who scored a total of 319 points, which breaks down to roughly 20 fantasy points per game. Wentz got off to a good start Sunday with 24 fantasy points against last year's 22nd ranked pass defense, the Cleveland Browns, who are arguably worse off this year than they were last year. He gets 4 of last year's top 5 passing defenses between weeks 2 and 13 and 6 of last year's top 15 in the same span. With the weapons he's got, I cannot see a scenario in which Wentz finishes top 15. Top 20 maybe, but not top 15.
Yeah, top 20 I could live with, but not 15.
And that's why it was a tough question. Question number 2. Your 3 options are very concerned, a little concerned, and not concerned at all. You're a Devontae Freeman owner. What is the correct level of concern regarding the Atlanta backfield timeshare with Tevin Coleman after 1 week?
I am going to be very concerned, and here is why. Tevin Coleman was supposed to have that job. Then he inadvertently lost it through injury, and he's getting it back now. I mean, that is the only way you can look at this.
But how preposterous is it that fantasy's number 1 scoring running back from 2015 is now expected to just take a back seat?
But why?
Does everybody not realize how
preposterous
that sounds?
Here's the thing. There are one-hit wonders all the time. And I'm not saying
That's
he
not
was.
a one-hit. That was a whole season.
I'm not saying
he outscored
is,
Adrian Peterson, Brian.
But defenses learn. They're professionals on the other side of the ball. They learn running backs' tendencies, they learn running backs' moves, and they learn their likes. And they understand it, and they calculate for it, and they game plan for it. I think that it's a legitimate, very concern, especially when you have the head coach coming out and saying, yeah, this is a 2-horse game here.
The correct answer, very concerned. Fantasy's top-scoring running back saw 15 touches to Coleman's 13, so he did out-touch him, but did considerably less with them, rushing for only 20 yards on 11 carries, catching 4 Matt Ryan passes for only 20 yards, no scores. Coleman, on the other hand, wasn't the most efficient with his carries, only gaining 11 yards rushing on 8 carries, but he did secure 5 passes for 95 yards. Now, coming into the season, the most believable narrative was that Coleman would eat into Freeman's early down carries, but that Devontae Freeman would be the Falcons' primary pass catcher. This wasn't the case at all on Sunday, and while I don't think it'll break down like this every week, seeing Freeman heavily involved in the passing, or seeing Coleman heavily involved in the passing game and succeeding, makes me, as a Devontae Freeman owner, very concerned. Brian's 2 for 2.
You almost said 0 for 2, and I about smacked you.
Well, it's because I'm so used to saying that every single week.
Dose for dose.
Question number 3, my friend. The Colts are going to be throwing the ball a lot this season.
Man, Gore was terrible.
Considering how potentially horrible their defense will be in 2016, there will be plenty of targets to go around in Indianapolis. In Week 1, T.Y. Hilton led the team with 12 of those. Dante Moncrief was second with 7. And before he exited Sunday's game, Dwayne Allen was 4th with 6. Are there any other Colts pass catchers worth rostering in leagues with 12 or more teams?
I'm going to say yes.
Don't say Jack Doyle.
No, I'm not saying Jack
You'll screw
Doyle.
up your perfect pop quiz.
I'm Jack Doyle. Like, are you kidding me?
I was so waiting for you to be like, yeah, you're picking up Jack Doyle. He scored 2 touchdowns again in overreaction.
No.
Overreaction.
Overreaction. I would, if you're that deep, I'd grab Dorsett. If you look at the game plan, T.Y. Hilton was getting covered by Darius Slay, who is a really good cover corner. So they were forced to have to game plan around that and use their other receivers in a different way. So I actually like Dorsett a lot in deep leagues, and you need him, and he showed it.
Philip Dorsett, who hauled in 4 of 6 targets from Andrew Luck for 94 yards, is the clear deep threat for the Colts, who will be playing from behind most likely in the majority of their games this season. He is most definitely worth stashing as a bye-week fill-in or flex play if you're thin at the wide receiver position. Brian,
Nailed
for
it.
the second time ever, went 3 for 3.
Second time this year.
Second time this year.
Let's just change the view on that.
3. I mean, it's 3 for 3 all time. This is your second time. Man, that's just a fact.
That's perspective. Pass is a pass, bro. Why you got to live in it?
I'm just saying I'm not arguing the fact that you nailed it this week. Cause
there's a lot more listeners. I feel that I need to do a quality job to provide to them and to see. I think actually you're feeling the heat actually on the other side and actually picking the right answer ahead of time because you don't like the negative publicity that you're always wrong. There's people that are, I hear them.
You're hearing voices as usual, Brian. They're in your head. They are nowhere else. Trust me on that. Just because we have one guy in our Dynasty Auction League that has all of a sudden flip-flopped over to your side on the trash talk
Sounds
videos.
like a pretty smart dude.
So we're on the My Fantasy League website as far as how we conduct our league, and a lot of people use MFL. It's a great site. And there's trash talk videos are a possibility on that site, which is a lot of fun. And the latest one is our commissioner, his name is Travis, sitting in front of looks like a shower curtain with like Star Wars logos on it.
Which is cool.
But it was like handmade Star Wars logos, like because that's his team, the Rebel Scum. And long story short, it's just him talking trash or attempting to, but he's not actually looking at the camera, which was the first thing I noticed, aside from the fact that he's in his bathroom. So when I was in the bathroom doing what people do in the bathroom, I decided to take a video with my shower curtain in the background, which was our kid's shower curtain, actually, and didn't look at the camera and made it painfully obvious just to do my impression. And that's how that turned out. So he's decided to flip-flop over to your side on this, but he's been texting me about how right I am on RG3 and stuff like that.
That's some love triangle we got going on.
We were so wrong on RG3, and it's painfully obvious now, but, sometimes you just can't account for injuries. But you should have probably seen it coming.
I seen it coming.
It's RG3. All right. Stick around. We've got plenty more matchups to get through here. Week 2 action of NFL coming soon. And we also have that bargain bin segment you're going to want to stick around for as well. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show. We thank you for listening to 1350 AM ESPN Radio, or maybe you're hearing this on iTunes, Stitcher, or via the ESPNDesMoines.com website. No matter how you found us, we much appreciate you and hope you'll come back.
Bootleg copies on YouTube, I heard. That might be a possibility. Some underground cassette tape action.
I love it.
That could be.
Mail it to your pen pals across the sea.
Man. 80s were awesome.
Over in Finland.
80s were so cool.
I like metal too. Yeah. Seattle at Los Angeles is our next matchup. When the Seahawks have the ball, Russell Wilson, a C grade. The big question is whether or not he'll even play on an ankle that got stepped on, quote-unquote, accidentally by Ndamukong Suh last weekend. Early reports were Wilson could barely walk on it, but if you asked Wilson himself or the coaching staff, it's nothing more than a flesh wound. Color me skeptical. Could be Trevon Boykin time in week 2 against a Rams team that clearly has major issues. And even again, if Wilson does play, he's not going to be 100% mobile, which isn't great. Thomas Rawls, I'm giving a B grade to. He gets the, quote, start this week and the promise of an expanded workload, according to head coach Pete Carroll. That's all great news if we were to believe it. My take is this will continue to be a timeshare behind a less than stellar O-line and possibly a backup quarterback. Who knows? There is potential here against a Rams defense that made Carlos Hyde look like an all-pro on Monday. Christine Michael, a C grade. Maybe it's just me, but he was anything but impressive last weekend despite being named the, quote, starter. We'll continue to mix in Rawls and Procise, but I don't have high hopes even against a terrible defense. Procise, I'm just going to leave on the bench. He's a third down guy, nothing more. Doug Baldwin, a C-plus grade. Serious concerns again about Wilson's status for Sunday. Equally concerned about the Seahawks pass catchers who may be catching passes from someone other than Wilson. If he does play, I'd bump Baldwin up to a B grade. Tyler Lockett, a C grade, becomes a C-plus if Wilson plays. On the Rams side, and this is super quick, Todd Gurley, a C-plus. It's clear the Rams need to get Gurley more involved, but they also need to open some holes for him as well. We didn't see that at all on Monday. This was the concern with Gurley back in the preseason. It's not his talent, it's the talent around him. Kenny Britt, I'm going to leave on the bench. In 6 career games against the Seahawks, he's caught 13 balls for 169 yards in 6 games. That's not good. Tavon Austin, a C grade, equally bad numbers against elite defense like Seattle. So unless you're in a really tough spot, I would leave it alone, but he does get a C grade.
All right, on to the Bucs cards. Quarterback Jameis Winston, I'm going to give him a B+ here, surprisingly. I didn't at first, but once I went through and recalculated, boop, 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 hitting buttons, B+. Likely not going to have that 4 TD opener that he did. Some of those TD catches were just insane, so you can't count on those again. But just in case the Cards didn't fix those defensive issues, Jameis Winston might be a champ here. Running back Doug Martin's going to get a B. I'm torn. I want to give the muscle hamster a little bit better, but it is Arizona, and Sims is always applying pressure from behind for more carries. Charles Sims, B-. So they're kind of right in there in the same boat, but I think Doug Martin's still kind of nudging himself ahead. Wide receiver Mike Evans, B+. Looked like a champ, caught more passes than he dropped, so that's definitely a plus. He's already ahead of last year. The Cardinals have only allowed 3 100-yard passers last year in 2015, so don't hold your breath on Evans going completely bonkers, but I'm still liking him B+. Wide receiver Vincent Jackson, I was surprised to see him pretty much be a dud last week, but we won't overreact to week 1. I do still like Vincent Jackson, so I'm going to give him a B- this week. I think he'll get better as the season goes on. Austin Seferian Jenkins, C+. He was spot on in camp, won that attitude, needed that little attitude adjustment, won his role. He only had 30 yards, though. You know, you seen that highlight reel, that touchdown catch. When you really look at it,
it's a great catch, very pretty catch.
Great catch, but he really only had 30 yards, and you can't count on those crazy bonker catches every single week. So C+ for ASJ. Quarterback Carson Palmer, he's going to get the A. This looked like my report card in high school. It's all A's.
Wow.
Nerd. Fun fact about Brian, I was in the chess club, just an FYI.
Were you the valedictorian?
No, I was not.
Salutatorian?
No.
Where were you?
I was drunk.
Oh.
Quarterback Carson Palmer, A. Matt Ryan threw for 300 yards, so you can expect the same from Carson Palmer to do the same. Running back David Johnson, A. I think this is his game. It's going to be his big breakout.
Those jump cuts were like superhuman.
Oh, man.
Sunday
it's
night.
like Barry Sanders out there,
I
man.
love watching David
Changing
Johnson.
directions mid-air. It's awesome.
Go Panthers.
Go Panthers. Wide receiver Larry Fitzgerald. He also gets an A. 2 touchdowns last week. Looking like the Fitz of old. I love him. You really he just got good value, especially if you pulled him in the 5th or 6th round. Like a lot of people were able to get him at. That's paying dividends. I don't think he's going to go 2 touchdowns this week, but he definitely showed that he's still competitive at a high level. Wide receiver Michael Floyd, B. Fitz got all the TD grabs. I wouldn't expect it forever. He's certainly going to keep in competition and start absorbing some of those touchdowns. Brown and Fells, they're kind of the afterthoughts here at this point.
Jacksonville at San Diego on the Jag side. Blake Bortles an A grade. The Chargers secondary just gave up 363 passing yards to Alex Smith, who generally doesn't ever reach the 300 level, especially when his running back Spencer Ware runs for nearly 6.5 yards per carry. I don't see Yeldon having that level of success on the ground, so Bortles will likely take to the air quite a bit here. Speaking of Yeldon, a C+. Without Chris Ivory, who we're assuming won't play again this week, it is painfully obvious how the Jags will attack the Chargers through the air primarily. Yeldon averaged less than 2 yards per carry in week 1, and though it was a tough Chiefs defense he was facing, I don't see Jags coaching staff letting him handle a ton of carries, even against a soft run D like the Chargers. Still no real competition for touches out of the backfield, which is good news, and he will be involved in the passing game to an extent. You could do worse than TJ Yeldon. Allen Robinson, a B+. Likely he'll be shadowed all game by stud cover corner Jason Verrett, which should keep A-Rob's numbers respectable but not over the top great. If he's targeted as much as he was in week 1, I think the number was 15 if I'm not mistaken, he's a great play regardless. Allen Hurns, I'm going to give a higher grade to, though, an A- here. I'm predicting a big week for the other Jags receiver named Allen, who should have no problem with Chargers defenders not named Verrett. Julius Thomas, a B grade. Not a bad idea to plug him in this week, as the Jags should have some opportunities inside the red zone on Sunday, and Thomas is virtually unstoppable there. He's a matchup nightmare. On the Chargers side, Phillip Rivers is a B, facing a much improved Jags defense without his number 1, Keenan Allen, who is out for the season, of course, with an ACL tear. I'm not in love with his chances, but I do think by virtue of game flow, he'll need to air it out in order to keep pace with the Jags and not let the game get out of hand. Danny Woodhead, a B+, an easy A grade in PPR leagues. Woodhead did not only damage through the air last weekend, he also carried the load for the Chargers running game for the most part. While I think those numbers are bound to dip a bit, there's no question that he'll be targeted a ton in the passing game with Keenan Allen out. Melvin Gordon is a B grade. I like him. I like the fact that he broke his touchdown-less streak, got that monkey off his back, but Woodhead's still the guy here. Travis Benjamin, a B-, a home run threat whose target should increase a bit with the loss of Allen. Tyrell Williams being talked up quite a bit by Phillip Rivers, a C+, a likely candidate for the wide receiver 2 production in the absence of Allen. I know some people are mentioning Dontrell Inman. He had his chance and blew it, so I don't think that's going to happen. I think Tyrell Williams is the guy there. Antonio Gates, a B+. I like him a lot this week. He needs 8 touchdowns to surpass Tony Gonzalez for the record. He could begin chipping away at that number in week 2 after a less than stellar week 1 box score.
Falcons Raiders, quarterback Matt Ryan, he's got a B here. He had great yardage, but that O-line needs to step it up for Matt Ryan to really push those long downfield shots. So Matt Ryan, B. Running back Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, we talked about this already. I'm giving both a B-. Definitely concerned, and now he also has a quad issue on top of it. Obviously not where he was drafted to perform it. Tevin Coleman, if you can snag him, please do so now. It's worth the gamble, and the tides might be a change in that Falcons backfield. They're virtually split in carries, so both get a B-. Wide receiver Julio Jones, B+, listed as questionable because of that ankle. It slowed him clearly, but the Raiders' secondary is bad. Start him, obviously, if you have him. Watch just in case he tweaks that ankle or it gets a little worse. Wide receiver Mohamed Sanu, love this guy, B+. He's my sneak play. His stat line showed it. He should have the same or better this week against that Raiders defense that allowed 2 140-yard receivers last week. So that's a good look there for Sanu. Tight end Jacob Tamme, B-. He had some yards. Going to see fewer targets as more everyone else gets healthy. I'm not pulling the trigger just yet. Raiders side of the ball, quarterback Derek Carr, B+. In line for a productive week. Hopefully more touchdowns than one. He has the matchup to do some damage. Running back Latavius Murray, he's going to get a B. He only had 14 touches, which is surprising. I wouldn't be too concerned. We don't overreact to week 1. It's probably going to get back to 20, 25 here in no time. They were playing from behind and looking to win that shootout in New Orleans, which I called, by the way, on this show. So it's not going to be the same it was last week. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, A. Easy A star for me. They went nuts. I bet he does over 100. Wow, I just totally confused myself there, didn't I?
Hello.
Yeah.
Welcome
wow.
to the show, Brian.
Hi, I'm here.
Earth to Brian.
He did have 136 yards last week. I bet he goes for over 100. Nabs that touchdown this week. Falcons are terrible in defense. Look what they were able to give up last week. Crabtree, B+. He's going to be playing their game. I expect 80 yards and a high chance of a touchdown. And that's really it. Start those 2 receivers if you can grab, especially if you can grab Crabtree right now.
Oh, absolutely. I've always thought, even though Amari Cooper is the flashier of the 2, I think Crabtree was incredibly
value
consistent last season and very steady. And to have a guy like that in your lineup week after week is not a terrible thing.
Especially when you can get him late in draft as everyone else is writing him off.
Kind of like Eric Decker, of the Jets. Same exact story. They're just not taking him because he's not exciting like the other guy. Brandon Marshall in that offense. So
that's right.
One more segment of matchups yet to come, including the big Sunday nighter and the Monday nighter as well. We've got that bargain bin segment straight ahead in the 515 Fantasy Flea Flicker. Brian and I are going to have a little fun to wrap up this week's show as we do every single week on the 515 Fantasy Football Show. You are listening to 1350 AM ESPN Radio. The 515 Fantasy Football Show, becoming world famous very quickly. You're listening to 1350 AM ESPN Radio, or maybe you're catching us on iTunes, Stitcher, or online at espndesmoines.com. Again, no matter where you found us or how you found us, we're glad that you're here and hope you're getting some great information for your matchups this week on the road to victory and ultimately a fantasy football championship.
And the one-of-a-kind grading system help for your matchup needs. I really take pride in this. I don't know about you, but I like it.
Yeah, I mean, I spend hours doing this.
It's a lot of work, but we hope it helps you out and gives you perspective as to why we love or hate or want to start or sit and all that stuff. We're giving you our confidence ranking here.
It's funny. I hear a lot of shows where they just sit there and go, well, I'd definitely start that player. And then they don't give any reason
and it's
why.
like Antonio Brown. It's
like I just cool. like him. Well, no, not just the obvious guys, but sometimes they'll just throw out, you should start this guy this week. I really like him. But they don't give you a reason why. Brian and I like to be your reason why. We like to give you a reason. My first matchup of this final matchup segment, Indianapolis at Denver. When the Colts have the ball, Andrew Luck is under center, and Andrew Luck, number 1 fantasy scoring quarterback in week 1. Gets a B grade here. Volume will be the name of the game for Luck and his weapons in the Colts passing game on Sunday. Denver possesses one of the league's most devastating defenses, featuring 2 of Pro Football's best cover corners, Aqib Talib and Chris Harris. Because I believe the Broncos will have no problem scoring on the Colts defense, Luck will need to take to the air early and often in this one, maybe 50 times or more. And when a quarterback like Luck has that many opportunities, efficiency is a virtual non-factor. Take last year when he threw for 252 yards and a couple scores against these same Broncos. Frank Gore is a C grade. I don't see Gore having much luck running the ball against Denver's superb front 7, but he may be targeted a handful of times in the short passing game, making him a desperation flex play, mainly for PPR leagues. T.Y. Hilton, a C+, likely tough sledding all day no matter who he's matched up against. Hilton has the ability to break a long one from time to time, but I wouldn't bet on it happening against one of the league's premier defenses against the pass. Dante Moncrief, a C grade, mainly the possession guy in the Colts offense. Moncrief may end up leading the team in targets and receptions by the time it's all said and done, but I wouldn't expect big yardage or many opportunities to score. Philip Dorsett, I'm actually giving him the highest grade of all the Colts wide receivers.
Really?
B-. In my opinion, the most intriguing of the wide receiver group this week, doing most of his damage out of the slot.
Yeah, underneath.
Where he may have some mismatches against Denver's linebackers and safeties. So kind of a sneaky play there, Philip Dorsett. Dwayne Allen, a B grade. We should see lots of action as the Colts wide receivers are largely shadowed by elite talent. Allen is typically a big threat inside the red zone, but he may take some targets over the middle of the field and in the flats where Colts wide receivers clear Broncos secondary members out. On the Broncos side, Trevor Siemian, a B grade. It shouldn't have much problem carving up one of the league's worst pass defenses. His ceiling is limited by what Anderson should be able to accomplish on the ground, but there should be plenty left for Siemian and his pass catchers to have a good day. Speaking of Anderson and an A grade, we all saw what Detroit's tandem of Amir Abdullah and Theo Riddick were able to accomplish versus these Colts last week, yes. Anderson should be one of the league's top scoring fantasy backs here in week 2. Emmanuel Sanders, a B+. He was the team leader in targets in week 1, and with Thomas at less than 100%, should continue to be thrown at and haul in a good number of Siemian passes. Speaking of Thomas, a C grade. I'm worried, as I'm sure you are, following those reports we mentioned, that Thomas was sort of like grabbing at his hip area and wincing a lot at practice yesterday. The fact that he sought out a second opinion was a bad sign, Brian. And though he may end up on the field of play this weekend, I'm not buying that he's healthy enough to contribute up to his usual potential. Virgil Green is the tight end, a C grade. Haven't been able to see what he's capable of just yet, but there's plenty of potential in a plus matchup such as this.
Packers Vikings breaking in the new stadium. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers B+. After a tough win in Jacksonville, the Packers on the road again. In a new place but familiar team, the Vikes defense played really well once they settled in, but expect the same. It is Rodgers, so B+ for him. Running back Eddie Lacy, B. I'm not thrilled with this matchup, so if you have a stud somewhere else, take a moment to think about it. He had 80 total yards last week, and maybe less if he plays the same way he did against Minnesota, especially in that new place. I mean, it's going to be hyped. The crowd's going to be into it. It's going to be a scary place.
Nationally televised audience.
Yeah, Sunday Night Football. It's going to be pretty good, but I would expect Lacy to probably have about the same stat line as he did last week. Wide receiver Jordy Nelson, B. His longest catch was 8 yards. Likely, I'm going to say it's likely something in his head with that ACL tear from last year. I believe he's going to get better and more confident as the week rolls on, but I think that's a legitimate concern early on, is that injury is still in his head and making him hesitate a little bit. Randall Cobb, B+, a little bit higher than Jordy Nelson. Vikes may be without Xavier Rhodes, which will help out and should get Cobb in the open more. Cobb led the team last week with his 58 yards, so watch for more for an impactful game on Sunday night. Devontae Adams, C+, Jared Cook, your boy, C-. Nothing flashy. I'm not buying these guys, especially against this Vikings defense. Quarterback Sam Bradford making his Vikings debut. Break it. Did you ever think? Did you? Well, he's gonna. He's gonna.
It's not for sure yet.
If I told you last year, at any point last year, Sam Bradford's going to be your starting quarterback breaking in the new stadium, what? That's crazy.
I would wonder if Teddy Bridgewater got hit by a bus.
Well, pretty close.
I know. It's as freakish as that, isn't it? Or struck by lightning or something. I mean,
it's one of those things where it's like, they got these big banners with Teddy Bridgewater, then Sam Bradford's going to be the starting quarterback.
I know.
So to go with that, he's going to get a C. Looks like Bradford's going to get the nod. I'm not too thrilled. A guy has chance over and over and over with better receivers in all of his different homes, so I'm not counting on it. Sam Bradford, C. Adrian Peterson, B. I'm a little worried about his output. I don't overreact to week 1, but he is a year older, and someone being drafted in round 1, you have to be a little bit concerned that maybe this is his fall-off year, that he starts trailing down a little bit. So I'm a little concerned. I'm going to give him a B because you have to expect the Packers to stack the box, play up front, and play tough. Stephon Diggs, actually the 3 wide receivers, Diggs, Johnson, and Treadwell, they're all going to get C's.
Treadwell didn't even play in week 1.
Yeah, so all of these guys are no-goes. If you have to start one of these guys, you need to listen to the bargain bin next segment because you need some help. Until we see Bradford in action, I can't get behind anyone in this wide receiver core. I can, however, get behind Kyle Rudolph. Only pass catcher I love in Minnesota. He is a must-start this week, especially with Bradford being the quarterback. If he gets in trouble or if he's rattled, he's going to look to that tight end to be a safety blanket and grab 5 to 7 yards at a time, especially PPR love here.
This is going to be like a 23-21 final. It's going to be relatively low scoring. They have the over-under at 52 in this game.
No way.
Vegas.
I was thinking more like 17,
I am
14.
betting the under all day long on this one.
I'm like
Mike
17.
Zimmer's defense against the Packers, typically he's done very well historically against the Packers, and Aaron Rodgers too, so I wouldn't expect a huge day out of Rodgers, but that's just me. Monday nighter, Philadelphia, Chicago. On the Eagles side, Carson Wentz, a C grade. He looked great in his debut against the Browns. This week, much tougher matchup on the road against the Bears. Surprisingly, they were pretty good against the pass in 2015. They ranked 4th, only giving up an average of 225 yards per game through the air. They did allow 31 passing scores, which was one of the worst in the league, but that is noteworthy here because I think Wentz can put up a couple of touchdowns. Ryan Matthews, a B+, 22 carries for 77 yards and a touchdown last week, dispelling the rumors that a committee approach may be an option in Philly. I'd say 20 carries is a safe floor going forward as long as he can stay healthy, and that's the kind of bell cow volume that most owners would love to have on their roster. Chicago was not a particularly good run defense in 2015, giving up plenty of yards, but only 9 rushing scores on the season. Darren Sproles, a C grade, handful of carries, handful of opportunities in the passing game, nothing too exciting here. Jordan Matthews, a B+. I wouldn't expect the gangbuster numbers he posted in week 1, but Matthews is a value, no question, for those that took a chance and drafted him. His success will always be dependent on Wentz, however. The Bears weren't terrible against the pass in general last season, but if you look closer, they were near the bottom against opposing number 1 wide receivers like Matthews, and nobody in their secondary is healthy. I can easily see him putting up top 10 numbers again in week 2, despite it being a road game. Brent Selick is the starting tight end. Great sleeper option if you're hurting at the tight end position. With Ertz out, Selick has averaged over 4 receptions and 57 yards and a touchdown every 4 games over the past 9. He gets targets when it's just him, and for the foreseeable future, that's the deal. There is a little bit of steam on this Trey Burton. I'll believe it when I see it. Over to the Bears side, and this is super quick. Jay Cutler, a C grade. Far too inconsistent to be counted on outside of Superflex leagues. Jeremy Langford, I'll give a B grade to. Once he gets up to speed in the Bears passing game, he's going to become a very valuable fantasy commodity. As it is, he's a rare 3-down back that gets plenty of touches. Despite a relatively tough matchup here, he's a good play this week. Alshon Jeffrey, a B+, should be extremely busy on Sunday. Cutler goes to him early and often. That's it for the matchups, man. We busted through.
Nailed it.
Now, if you need some help, maybe you lost somebody. Maybe you're a Keenan Allen owner that lost Keenan Allen last week, and you're looking for some help, and you're desperate. Brian and I have a little something called a bargain bin coming right up.
If there's one thing I know, it's desperation.
Got 1 quarterback, 1 running back, and 1 pass catcher, and we'll give them to you shortly. Flea Flicker also on the way on 515 Fantasy Football. This is the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio. We're also on iTunes, Stitcher, and online at espndesmoines.com. I'm Andy Hall. That's Brian Eikenberry. You can find us individually on Twitter. The general account is at 515 Fantasy. You can hit us up there, or if you want to do it, to just us, at Andy Hall Radio, at Ike FFB. That's IKEFFB.
Yeah, if you want to, offer your words of encouragement and support and tell me how wrong Andy is during the pop quiz, IKEFFB.
You're wasting your time.
No, people
You've
agree.
been doing this for weeks, wasting my airtime with that.
No, they love me.
Nonsense.
They love me.
Nonsense.
I'll sign autographs.
Bargain bin is the part of the final segment here. If you are desperate for a quarterback, a running back, or a pass catcher, could be a receiver or a tight end, we've got one of each for you. Brian, who's your quarterback this week?
My quarterback is Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's owned in 40% of the leagues, which is surprising. I was really surprised. I thought it would be more. Bills gave up 300 yards passing last week. I expect them to do the same, and I expect Fitz to be angry and buck history off of his back.
How does one buck history?
Just got to get it off, man. Just got to buck it. Burn them bucks.
You better be careful there, mister. My quarterback is Trevor Siemian, Denver Broncos. Listen, I don't need to tell you how horrible the Colts defense is. I mean, a JV quarterback could step in and give you a decent day from a production standpoint in fantasy football.
I'm thinking so.
Trevor Siemian is not a barn burner. He's not Peyton Manning by any stretch of the imagination. But I do have a feeling that he's going to have a really productive day.
As long as he's not chucking it to the other team, he should do just fine.
Well, I mean, the Colts aren't exactly known for creating turnovers. So Trevor Siemian's my bargain bin quarterback. Who's your running back?
My running back is not necessarily a bargain bin for this week, but it's a stash. Tim Hightower. I think you have a legitimate opportunity here. If you have the roster space, you got some other spots you're just kind of farting around with, go snag Hightower in case Ingram gets hurt, because you're going to look like a champ then.
My running back is Shane Vereen, New York Giants. I love seeing him get some field time down near the stripe as we did in week 1. We'll see whether or not that will become the norm, but one thing we should be able to bank on is his involvement in the passing game. Admittedly, this is a bit of a PPR play, but he did catch 8 passes for 60 yards and a touchdown last season against the Saints, who the Giants get this week. So a little bit of history there. A game that should be very high scoring. I like a guy like Shane Vereen. Who's your pass catcher?
Tight end Kyle Rudolph. I gave him a B+ in the matchup. End of the reason why, Packers defense gave up 112 yards and a touchdown to Julius Thomas. They sucked on tight ends. Bad. So expect the same thing for Kyle Rudolph here.
Mine's a wide receiver this week, and his name is Mohamed Sanu, former Cincinnati Bengal, now Atlanta Falcon. He's a guy that nobody was talking about during draft season. Very under the radar.
Pretty sure Brian Eikenberry was.
But those of you paying attention, like Brian and myself, knew that he would probably be the number 2 to Julio Jones, and that's never a bad spot. I don't care who you are. So he put up a big week last week. I expect him to do the same this week as, Jones clearly isn't 100%. I think he tweaked an ankle or something. So
yeah, he's still going to command them double teams, though, and that's what's great for Sanu. I think he's got a real good shot to make good fantasy impact, especially how late or on waiver wire you're able to snag him.
All right, so we got about 6 minutes for this 515 flea flicker.
Okay,
this week's edition is a nice extended version. So why don't you begin, since this is your brainchild?
Well, no, I was gonna. You finally had a topic to talk about, so
Yep.
I want you to.
My topic are the new
open
Color
floor.
Rush uniforms.
Oh, make me puke, man.
Okay, you don't like any of them?
No, I like the Seahawks. Look amazing.
Awesome. I want one of those.
No kidding, right?
They're so ugly. They're awesome.
So, of course.
But like the Lions, your
I
team.
was so mad.
They've already worn that uniform.
That's exactly what I said. I tweeted every single beat writer I could find
They're
who was tweeting
horrible.
that out. I'm like, pretty sure nobody liked the black unis from about 5-6 years ago.
Black has never been a Detroit Lions color.
Why is the whole thing not Honolulu blue? Why is the whole
Agreed.
thing not silver? You've got to be kidding me.
All right.
And we're not even wearing them in 2016.
I know. And there are teams that aren't, okay? That's the other thing that annoys me about this. But I'm not typically a color-on-color guy anyway for uniforms. I'm kind of a snob about this. If you're wearing color up top, you should be wearing white pants, okay? That's the way it should be. And if you're wearing white up top, it's okay to wear white pants, but I'd prefer you wear color. This is like interior decorating.
You're like super you've got like murderer face on right now. You're like super serious about this stuff.
I am, but I mean the color rush, like some of them are hideous. They look like somebody puked on a jersey, basically.
Yeah. Just bad.
I don't know. I'm undecided on my team whether or not I like the Vikings. I think I would like them a lot better if it wasn't like that really loud yellow color. I think I'd like it better if it was like the Ravens purple with the real gold color.
Yep.
That would look much sharper than the yellow.
So there was one matchup. It was the Patriots and somebody else. And one was like a dark blue and the other one was like a dark navy. And I was reading some of it. They actually had to go back and change the Patriots because there's one joke about, apparently the NFL didn't want to set the record for 522 interceptions being thrown this game because nobody could tell their people apart.
Yeah, right. Brett Favre would be begging to come back into the league at that point. Speaking of which, the Green Bay Packers, come on, guys. Could you be any more boring? They've always been boring anyway. They're ugly jerseys. But this one, they didn't do a darn thing to it.
And I've been itching for a gimmick to make me go out and buy like a fun jersey. Like jerseys are expensive.
Yeah,
I mean, authentic jerseys. I mean, you're going to pay a dime for them.
Yeah.
So I want something to make me spend that money. And you come rolling in with these dumb black jerseys, and I'm just like, nah, it's not happening.
They should do throwback where they actually go back to the old powder blue.
I actually love throwback uniforms. I really do.
What did you call it again? What was the color? Not powder. Honolulu
The
blue.
Honolulu blue, man.
Back in the Barry Sanders days.
Yeah, they were gorgeous. I love those.
So yeah, I'm not too impressed by the color rush, to be quite honest. If I do buy a jersey, it's probably going to be a Seahawks jersey. Maybe a Raiders. I like the fact that the Raiders are doing a white with a silver number. Yeah, that's cool.
That was pretty cool. I did
Janikowski jersey. That's what I want. That's all I want for my birthday, which, by the way, is coming up next Friday, the 23rd.
I will be on a beach in Jacksonville thinking of you.
Oh, yeah, you have fun in Jacksonville.
I will.
Try not to get shanked.
Yeah, I won't. I did read some stuff about the colorblind stuff, issues that they had last year where people who were colorblind couldn't tell what team was which. So that
Really?
Yeah. So that did.
Why do I find that funny?
It is kind of funny because if you're watching, it's like, wait a minute, who's what? So I guess they took that into consideration when designing the new uniforms. But I like when you turn it on, it's like the red team and the green team. It's like a Christmas football game.
Yeah.
Or the Jaguars and the Bills
so
where it looked like
ugly.
bottles of ketchup and mustard running back and forth at each other. It was hilarious.
What was the one that literally, it's Washington, looks like a bottle of barbecue sauce or something? It's horrible. Horrible. That yellow.
I think it's fun, though. I like that they're doing it. I don't like that they did it for all 32 teams when not everyone's wearing them. Like, so that's where it kind of like,
I'd rather do throwback. Like, if you're if you're the Tennessee Titans, you wear Houston Oiler jerseys or something. Like,
I said oyster jerseys.
Oiler jerseys. Yeah, same thing, right? Oysters, Oilers. But yeah, that's my idea, is like the old throwback thing. And I'm not talking about like the old Bumblebee uniforms for the Steelers.
Those
either.
are cool, though.
Oh, I hate
They're like
those.
jailbird ones. I like them.
I hate them so much. I hate them almost as much as I hate the Acme Packers jerseys.
The Packers one, that's hilarious.
That ugly brown color and
yeah.
the pants. Oh, my God.
Yep.
The only thing that could have made it better is if they were actually wearing like burlap. For the pants,
They had like some meat wrapping paper and stuff like that, like blood on the pants.
Now you're making me think of grilling.
I'm really hungry right now.
Well, where are you going to go right after the show?
I might swing through McDonald's on the way home prior to mixing this episode and get a couple of McChickens.
Is Chick-fil-A still open?
No.
That's
They
too
shut
bad.
down way early.
That's not cool, man.
No, Wendy's is open though late. That's cool. I like Wendy's too.
Right.
So here we go. You know what's really nice? How much time we got left?
1 minute.
Ooh, Hardee's. If you haven't tried Hardee's for a while,
I like their chicken strips.
what? No.
They're hand breaded.
So my favorite sandwich was the All-American, where it had the hot dog and the chips and the
Anything with a hot dog,
good.
I'm out.
I love hot dogs.
I've seen how they're made. Never
I don't
again.
care. I don't
Never
care,
again.
pal.
No way.
Don't care.
Will not feed them to my children. Will not eat them
Yum.
myself.
Yum.
It's basically up there with tuna for me and most hated food ever.
Ground up fish is delicious.
Oh my God. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
Shouldn't smell like unkempt human being.
It's awesome.
That's what tuna smells like.
Put some mayo in
You
it.
haven't washed in a while.
Nah.
Take a shower.
Busy.
Speaking of which, that'll just about do it for this program before we get kicked off the air and fired. We thank you for listening. We invite you to check us out on Facebook, 515 Fantasy Football, on Twitter at 515 Fantasy. Andy Hall, Brian Eikenberry, also individually on Twitter as well. Hit us up anytime, and thank you for listening to the 515 Fantasy Football Show on 1350 AM ESPN Radio.